awesome to speak to you, Jake, because I loved this movie. I really do think it's one of Marvel's best. And, I
Oh,
love how
thank you.
the opening really sets the tone for this story and it culminates with that incredible jump. So, how important would you say Florence and that massive practical stunt were in really setting the tone for the story you wanted to tell here?
I mean, yeah, that's kind of everything for her character and where it goes. And I mean, to have an actress like that she was so committed to doing that jump and doing it for real, and to know that, it is a real stunt. And I mean, she's amazing. She jumped off that building, but I think like what to me, what's so kind of special about that moment is that it really is the introduction to the place that her character is in. And to know that you have an actress who can deliver that kind of acting in a close up, and then in the same shot, you pull out and she's actually going to step off of the second tallest building in the world. You know, there's almost no one that can do something like that. And to have Florence, it allows you to kind of dream big in terms of what you can do both with character and performance, but then also on, kind of on that bigger scale.
Yeah, amazing. And when it became clear to you that you obviously being tasked with introducing the MCU's new Avengers, did that change your approach to the story at all, or was it really just an added bonus to know that how important the film would be to the wider story being told?
I mean, it was an exciting opportunity, and that was there from the beginning, even though many other things shifted about the story. So I think, yeah, it meant that we always knew that we had to kind of walk this interesting line of trying to make a movie that was different, which is something Kevin also told us to do, but it had to end in this place that felt like it could live up to that mantle, even if at first the audience, maybe like the public and the MCU, was a little like, huh? And then when you think about it, you're like, oh, I guess they could be that in their way, or you would like to at least see them try going forward. And so it felt like our movie had to kind of take that same tack. It's like, this is going to be different. This is not going to be, necessarily your traditional MCU movie, but by the end, but it also needs to have enough things in it that live up to that legacy so that when you get to the end, it doesn't feel like it comes entirely from out of nowhere. That like when you squint and when you go back in and you see all of the breadcrumbs that we left around kind of old Avengers history and those moments from the MCU that we're kind of quoting or hinting at that you would feel like it had actually built up to that moment.
Yeah, for sure. And as a fan, this is a kind of question that keeps me up at night. Obviously, Thunderbolts came out shortly after Daredevil, and in that series, obviously New York was under martial law. Did you ever talk to Marvel about tying into that at all, or was it just not something that aligned with where production was?
We were definitely aware of it, but we felt like, the one thing that kind of, obviously these questions always come up in these movies of why wasn't this person there? Why didn't this thing that, like there are a lot of things in the world, and we always felt like, our movie is so contained, the whole thing takes place within a matter of a couple days, and so there's an immediacy to the threat and to the problem. So not only did we try to build a story where with this particular antagonist or big bad, like they are the perfect people for it because it's about common cause or an understanding of what that person's going through, but also just, I mean, no one else could even possibly get there, like that it's such a particular moment in time,
Yeah.
and it happens so fast that those questions of martial law or this or that, I mean, it's all within an afternoon. And so we could kind of not take that on and feel like it was still believable within that world so that each story could kind of go on its own path and wouldn't feel like they were stepping on each other.
Yeah, I think that's a really satisfying explanation. And something else I couldn't help but notice, Mel, she's wearing what looks like a songbird necklace. Was there any ever talk about maybe having her gain powers, or is that just one of those breadcrumbs that maybe Marvel can revisit down the line? And she's a great character in her own right. Anyway, I thought.
Yeah, I think like we all wanted to kind of, even in, Congressman Gary, to just make sure that like in all the characters there were hints towards, kind of deeper connections within the MCU and places these things could go later. And it'll be fun to see like if that gets picked up on or not.
Yeah, for sure. And one of my favorite scenes, and this is a film with so many great moments, is when the Sentry just decimates the team. It's such a beautifully choreographed moment, and I'd love to know how difficult was it to piece together that sequence where, you know, Bob has discovered these almost Superman-like powers, and he's obviously getting used to his abilities and just flinging the team around like they're nothing. I love that element of it.
Yeah, I mean, it takes so many people. I mean, Federico D'Alessandro, one of our we had many, many wonderful storyboard artists on this film that was really a sequence that he took on. And so working with him and then working with Jake Morrison, our wonderful VFX supervisor, who really got excited about it, even though there definitely is CG in that sequence, but we did over the course of an entire week have a motion control rig where we were repeating that camera move for real and sending each of our actors over for each of their moments so that it could be recreated. And then, some of that stuff gets replaced, but it's always starting from a practical base. And I think what we wanted with that sequence is, again, when you look up, sort of Sentry's powers, they are truly limitless. It's meant to be more of a parable. And so there's so far you could go with that, but we were trying to keep it on a level that felt sort of at least somewhat like our movie, even if it's kind of stepping out more into more traditional superhero language at that point. So the thinking was, yeah, exactly, and it's great that you picked up on that. That he's not even aware of all that he can do yet. You're getting to see the first moment of that, so that it's not like part of the choreography of that sequence is the way he sort of almost flinches from the bullets until he realizes he can stop them and then flings them back. And so really working with Lewis on kind of, like a discovery of powers within the sequence. And then, what's interesting with that is that if it feels too nonchalant in a way, it doesn't actually land. Like there's a kind of like action language and just in the way that stunts work, but there does need to be some effort. So it was like this very, very kind of delicate balance working with Heidi, our wonderful stunt coordinator, and Lewis and Jake and everyone to kind of find what that sweet spot was where the punches still landed and the hits landed, but you still felt like it was a discovery in the first time that he was using these things that you could imagine. Like, obviously, this film is not at the scale where you would show it, but going forward, you can just see if this is how much he learned in such a short amount of time, like how far that this could go.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's such a fascinating character. And of course, in the comics, we've seen the Void portrayed almost like a literal monster at times. And did you ever consider heading down that route? And regardless, what led you to that, I think still think very terrifying silhouette-like design that we see in the finished film.
Yeah, I mean, we experimented with everything. I mean, it was such a kind of exploration process of what that should look like. I think, Kevin really had pushed us down this road of, can we do something photographic? Like, is there any non-CG way to do this? And there isn't really. I mean, not with that, not in a language that would fit with the rest of the film, but we were trying to do something again where he was photographed in all the scenes and with a simplicity to it where like he's never CG. I mean, there is rotoscoping going on, but like if there was enough, just trying to think of like what's the simplest thing we can do that will contain the most of Lewis's performance, and will feel the most like there's a performance in it, but also like again, like because there is this sort of now history or patina of CG that's been used in these movies, sometimes like taking a turn and doing something a little more simple can be striking in the lack of the things that you tend to expect from that. So, but we imagined all of those things and we referenced all of the, kind of the elements of the comic books. And there's so many different kind of amazing ways that he's been portrayed. I think in our movie, some of the more kind of monstrous depictions of the Void felt like and we explored some of those where like we would do red eyes and then all of a sudden it felt like we have to swing so far in that ending in terms of being able to like reach in and care for this person or rescue them from this place that like it was always that balance of like we want this to be scary or spooky, we want it to be striking but we also don't want it to put it at such a remove that you don't feel that you could go and rescue Bob from within that space.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, talking of rescuing Bob, that another fantastic scene at the end of the film when the team really rallies around him, and it seems the darkness is going to really overwhelm him. And I think it's one of the MCU's most powerful moments. But how challenging is a sequence like that to put together in contrast to the action one with the Sentry? Because just seeing the team, like I said, come around him and talk to him and talk him down, I just thought was, yeah, just masterful.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, I think it takes great actors more than anything, and like I mean, you've got, not only just sort of, I mean, look, they're great in any context, but you're also asking them to stand on the wall with this kind of piece of furniture around them and be like, yeah, yeah, no, I know you're a superhero, but like this piece of furniture is actually you can't get it off. And like to watch them struggle against like a a lab chair, and like still put that, it takes commitment and people not like being like, what are we doing? I think they gave their all in every moment, and then to know and have the trust that like, frame store and all of the things that we're going to bring to it in post are going to make that stuff feel earned, and like really focus on, the emotional core of what's going on between those characters. I think what I sort of feel coming out of the whole experience, is like just, and even I was when we were doing pickups, we were in London, and I got to stop by the Fantastic Four set for a moment and watching those actors and how amazing they are, and you just see how much of it's like, for all of the kind of great production and effects and practical effects that are around these things, like those guys, like that's what makes it magic. Like their belief in those moments and their commitment to playing those things and like bringing a real sense of emotion, even when there is such a heightened world, or again, you're being asked to struggle against a chair, like an evil chair. Uh, that commitment from those actors, and I was so lucky to have just, I mean, such an incredible cast. To me, that's what makes it work.
Yeah, absolutely. And the cast is amazing. And, I know obviously one of the post-credit scenes was devoted to setting up Avengers, and that was the Russos. And I know you were there for that. But mid-credit scene, I think, is very entertaining as well, with obviously the Wheaties box and Red Guardian. But were there any other ideas for that, or was that a payoff you knew you always wanted to have with that character?
I mean, Alexi is just so fun. I mean, you could come up with uh, post-credit scenes for Alexi all day. I think we did have one other idea that maybe it could be like the VHS home video like of the soccer game, with Mindy. Um, and that might be fun, like the chaos of that going back in time. But I don't know, this is just where we landed. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, I know you said that you wanted Man Thing at the movie at one point, and that's one of those things now that's taken on a life of its own, as if he was going to be like one of the lead characters. But how close did you come to that? And were there any other characters you considered that you obviously realized weren't a good fit for the story as time went on?
We didn't come close at all. Yeah, I have to
Yeah.
look. I'm still learning how to do these interviews and what gets picked up if you just say a
Yeah.
little thing. It was like my first meeting on the movie. I wasn't hired on it at all yet. It was an idea I threw out. It was not considered because I mean, what I didn't know is that Man Thing was in Werewolf by Night. I think that no, once that was also before Robert Reynolds was part of the story, and then once he was in, I mean, that just became so much the focus of how to. He was such a fascinating character, and how to build a story around how all of our characters that were already in it relate to him and what he's going through. After that, no, it never really was like we pretty much focused on that team and how to build the best movie out of that.
Yeah, of course. And at the same time, there's obviously a lot of reports going around about what's next for you, and I appreciate you can't maybe talk about those, but if you ever were to take on something like X-Men or even just another big movie, how would you say Thunderbolts has really prepared you to take on a big task like that?
I think that say nothing about the future, but just this film and like what I learned from it. And look, I loved working on it and I loved working with everyone at Marvel. I think that, the lesson of the movie is also the lesson in making the movie, which is that you cannot, I mean, and it's kind of obvious with making it, like you cannot do it alone, and I think that Thunderbolts is the product of just a massive amount of work. I used to get, John Watts was my roommate in college, and I used to go see the Spider-Man movies and be like, God, that just seems like so much work. There must be some way where it doesn't feel that way. And it's like, no, it's just a massive amount of work by a ton of people who care deeply. And I think that, I would not have gotten through this without um, so many, it's like it's amazing watching the credits, and I could pick up people that go by in a few seconds, and I could talk to you for an hour about what they did on this movie, like Alex Levy, our music editor. or just anyone. There's so many people. And so that to me is kind of the lesson of it is that, it takes this kind of massive group of people all caring very much. And that if you can learn to work within that environment and really harness the kind of energy that those people bring, then there's an opportunity to really tell interesting stories and take things places that are unexpected and try to make something special.
Yeah, and I think something that has made this film really resonate are those smaller moments like the one between Yelena and obviously Alexei later in the movie, and such an emotional, I think, a beautiful moment. And what a performance from Florence. It must have been such a special thing for you as a director to get that sort of performance out of them and to really get that emotional core of the movie, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I mean, just to be clear, like I didn't get anything out of anyone. I mean, that's like David and Florence. Just, I mean, what I can say is like I don't think we shot that scene until 8 weeks into the shoot, and it's so funny, the way these things go. Like we did that in half a day, and then had stunt stuff to do in the afternoon. It's in just a limited window of time. But I was so excited for that scene, and we had talked about it, but we never really. I don't think we ever rehearsed it. We had kind of gone through. I like to kind of like just talk through the scenes and make sure the actors and I are on the same page, and they added things to it. And but it was just one of those ones where you just had. I was just like, I'm excited to watch this happen. And I mean, I certainly wasn't disappointed. I mean, it just the level that they brought to that, and in those situations, you want to just be very simple. I mean, it's two shots, you know, a handheld camera on Florence and a handheld camera on David, and you just let them go. And I mean, they're so good together. And yeah, that was a real treat to watch. But I don't think I deserve any. I didn't get anything out of anyone. They brought it. So yeah,
Yeah, for sure. Well, Jake, thank you so much for taking the time. Like I said, I really do think this is one of Marvel's best films. I know the audience for it's only going to grow, and I cannot wait to see whatever you do next because I'm sure it's going to be amazing. So thank you so much for your time.
thank you so much, Josh. I really appreciate it.
Congrats on the film. Thanks, Jake.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a good one.